Good.
Hi, welcome to the Demystifying Human Design podcast. This is NoRa from Rhymes of Pleasure, and I am Ariana. I am Ariana from Irani. And in this podcast, we're going to be sharing our reflections and our insights on the daily transits of human design. We have our very own perspectives that we're really excited to share. Um, And we're going to be starting today with the 49th gate. NoRa, hi.
Hi everybody. Hi Ariana. It's very exciting for us both, I believe, to be here. Yes, we chose to start today, and today happens to be the theme of the day happens to be seen from human design perspective, gate 49, the topic of revolution. And on one hand, I can say it's a quite big of a start to jump into the collective realm of YouTube and podcasting and just right away start talking about revolution and higher principles. But here we are, demystifying the human design lenses and demystifying also the everyday lenses. What is revolution, our own relationship to revolution, our own relationship to higher principles. And yeah, it is kind of also exciting, as this is currently a very just current big topic within our society. I believe everywhere globally, seen on every continent almost. There are acts of revolution, people standing for their rights. So I'm just very curious, looking forward to see where our reflections will take us today. And yeah, with the intention of demystifying and yeah, respectfully having fun. Let's dive deep.
Yeah.
What comes to mind? What comes to mind when you think about, if for a moment we land on human design field, and
Mhm.
if we think of gate hexagram 49, the name of it, revolution, what comes to mind, Ariana, for you?
Yeah, the 49th gate, like you're saying, it's such an intense energy. And I think on so many levels, so much is happening in the 49th gate right now. I really feel like it's a place or it's a feeling that we are evolving, in a sense that it's a sensitivity that we are kind of mastering, in the sense that we know it very well, and at the same time we don't know it at all. We are still discovering what it means to be sensitive, how we want to be sensitive, how we want to be there for each other, how we want to recognize what we need, how we want to recognize what others need. And there's a lot of turmoil going on, and I think that's creating this chaos for pretty much everyone in the world, because everybody is in such emotional turmoil about, what do I need? What does the other person need? How do I take care of myself? How do I take care of the people around me? And at the same time, all these global processes that we are being informed about, that we care about. So the space that we have for actually caring, for actually being sensitive, has to be bigger and bigger every day. Like, there's always more that we need to care about. We need to care about not just ourselves, not just our direct environment, but all these other processes that are going on, that we have an opinion about, that we have feelings about, and they are moving through us. We experience them. It's not just far away. It's right here in our phone. It's right here, present in our everyday lives. Um, so it's not just abstract concepts. It's something that we feel very closely in ourselves, and those feelings are happening on so many layers that I think that that's why we're all just really confused, really don't really know where to go with our emotions, don't really know what we're feeling at any moment in time. I hear a lot of people saying, and I experience this myself also, is that there's a lot of emotions during the day. We start off the day one way, and then something happens, and then something else happens, and something else again happens, and our feelings just go along in that chaos, really. And we try to, breathe through it, try to hold on to some kind of stability, some kind of self-knowledge, some kind of awareness, but it's very difficult a lot of the time. It's just kind of too much all of the time. And I think that that's very present here in this 49th gate, because the 49th gate is the most tangible, it's the tribal, it's the needs, it's the physical body, it's where we come together, the friction. How do we come together? How do we stay apart? So it's the most physical, tangible presence. Do you recognize this as well, NoRa?
I like it what you say now at the end, that it's tangible. Yeah, true. I was thinking while you were talking, I was thinking, just to whoever you are, guys watching, listening, regardless of your human design level, I would like to give a reminder of, where the both of us are stepping on. This gate 49, it is in the emotional center, so that's why here we talk about emotions predominantly. And so what we know about emotions is actually what you've been talking about. It's the wave, it's that movement of up and down, up and down. And what the 49 is showing us for every human being on this planet Earth, regardless if you have that gate activated, not activated, in a defined channel, no defined channel, that does not matter. You do have in your genetics, the genes, right? That this gate, that this human design body graph is just indicating we're having that gene, we're having that characteristic inside of us. And that characteristic is just moving in that up and down wave. So our own relationship and our own connection to revolution, to rejection, right? It is moving in that up and down wave. So the way I feel about rejection, for example, if I am in a low mood, let's say, right, in a low emotion, it's going to be one. But if I am in a high emotional state, and if in that moment I think, for example, about rejection, my perception of rejection is going to be way different. And that is something very interesting to observe, right? When in our everyday life, when we feel good, we feel easy about rejection, probably. But when we feel bad in our life, like, I don't like using the word bad, honestly, about emotions, but when we feel low or when we're silver down on the emotional spectrum wave, rejection actually can feel super heavy, as if somebody is beheading you, which is also kind of interesting because we have also here in that aspect of our human psyche, we have that butcher characteristic. The butcher, what is the butcher doing? The butcher is this one person that is going and actually killing animals in order for us to have food. For good or for bad, we do that. Honestly, I would not like to put moral on it. Even though right now when I say that, I'm aware I'm starting to touch a very sensitive topic. But that is why we actually come together, demystifying human design, demystifying our everyday life. Because so if I continue moving on that sensitive topic, veganism, for example, big chunk of it is based on that moralistic principle, portraying the killing of animals as something very bad. and infusing us humans with a guilt for intaking that animal's food, you know. So very often, many of us will make the choice of stopping eating meat or animal products because of that moral agreement or moral belief or higher principle. For good or for bad, this moral way of thinking is existing. For good or for bad, there are people who kill animals to have food. For good or for bad, then there are people who are reflecting, I guess, emotionally reflecting. How can we execute the act of killing an animal? So if we start asking ourselves that question, actually, we see it in society. We have created so many different ways of killing animals to offer food. We have those massive, right? We produce animals in a massive way, so we kill them in a massive way. Actually, when we hear the stories about how exactly that looks like, all of us, our faces cringe like that, because for many of us, it looks, I'm going to use the word probably disrespectful. But then there are also so many other methods and approaches and ways and examples within our society. I also assume they're not that mass, how do you call it in English? Done in a mass way, but rather done the quantity of it is way small. But there are people who do with respect. They actually, they can turn it into a shamanistic event, even the killing of a chicken or whatever kind of animal, so that we can have the meat after that. So I don't know, my mind just right now went into that direction, but if I think about it, that direction is a key component of that entire Gate 49 genetic aspect all of us are having. So not my as NoRa, but my as a human approach, my relationship, my connectionship to my meat intake, to the killing of animals so that I can have the meat intake, you know, my approach to the butter principle engraved in all of us, that is actually, probably we don't think about it every day, but in reality, we're confronted with that every day, because every day we make the choice, are we going to be buying and eating and cooking and eating meat or not, right? Are we going, how close are we actually dealing with death? Because right, to have that beautiful pasta bolognese or meatballs or steak, right, costing 30 euros somewhere in a beautiful restaurant and taking the Instagram pictures. I mean, we may be talking about those abstract topics, but they are very, very mundane. We see them on Instagram. We see them in our shops that we enter every day. We see the fridge area in the shop. Death is everywhere. Killing is everywhere. The butcher principle is everywhere. So yeah, as to somehow give a form and to summarize those thoughts, I'm thinking the way I see our intent of demystifying human design and demystifying right now the topic of Gate 49, revolution, rejection, our connection to animals, you know, in our everyday life, it is, yeah, inviting all of us and stimulating all of us that I don't want to use necessarily right now the word acceptance, but can we ponder collectively together about our own individual approach and relationship to those topics, and our emotional position to them? Yeah, can we observe it? Not once and think, oh, I've observed it once, it's done. So I have my answer for the rest of my life. No, hey, we have that emotional wave going up and down. So what is my relationship about this or that today when I feel okay? What is my relationship to this and that tomorrow when I feel less okay? And the day after when I feel super excited, right? Um, I believe all of us can find so much, information by just observing and contemplating, and probably less opinionating or not.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me, really gets me thinking about how morality is subjective, in the sense that morality is based on what we need and how we feel, and it's not rational. And we like to think of it as kind of like a collective experience, like, oh, morality is something, it's, you could put it in a box, this is what is right and this is what is wrong. But often people don't experience it that way. And when you're speaking about killing animals and eating animals, that's something where that is very tangible. Because for me, I've been vegetarian most of my life, but I've mostly been vegetarian because I just don't like meat. I just, when I eat it, it doesn't, I don't even remember eating it because I never had a taste for it. I never desired it. And the moral aspects of vegetarianism came after that. At some point, I started thinking about, oh, maybe why do I not eat meat, and do I have a reason for that? And I started researching that, and I was like, maybe it is better for me not to eat meat because I don't like it, and I don't think it's a great thing to do. But I was always very aware that that need for me came first, and also that it's kind of simple to say, oh, I'm not going to eat meat when you don't like it. And there's a lot of people who really need meat, and who, if they don't eat meat, they become very unhealthy. And in many, many cultures, eating meat is the main form of sustenance. And especially for people who are hungry, who don't have a lot to eat, it's very important to have meat because you need protein. There's so many nutritional value to it. So then it's not up to me in any sort of way to say, oh, you should not be doing that. So in that sense, for me, my morality is very clear, isn't that it, for me, it doesn't feel right and healthy to eat meat, but that's literally just for me. There may be other people who are vegetarian who have their reasons for that, but that's for each of them an individual experience, an individual decision. And that's how I always felt like there would be people around me who would also decide to be vegetarian, but I have never told anyone, or I've never tried to convince anyone to be vegetarian, because I've never felt like that was my place to do that. That's a decision everyone needs to make for themselves. And I think this is an interesting aspect of the 49th gate, the aspect of need and the aspect of sensitivity, and how personal it actually is, what we are sensitive to and what we actually need. And so we can say, oh, I have this higher principle, and that is the most important thing to me. That's what I base my whole morality on. That's what I base my identity on. That's why I am who I am. But that one higher principle can be completely irrelevant to somebody else's experience. And so they have nothing to do with that. They don't even think about it. They're not even occupied with it. And I think, what you were saying, acceptance in that, I think is such a fundamental principle for, the way that we communicate with each other, the way that we relate to each other, that we have this very basic respect for the morality of another person. And that even if we don't understand why someone does the things the way they do, that we can be like, okay, yeah, you come from your perspective, and I accept that. And I not only accept that, but I love you for it. We don't have to agree on everything. We don't have to see things the same way, because that's impossible. We all come from our own perspective. We had our own upbringing, all the different ways that we've been conditioned, all the different way that we've been designed, that are so individual, it's impossible to all have the same perspective on things. And I think in healthy ways of relating, we make space for that. We have space for the other person's perspective, for the other person's morality, and to say, okay, yeah, if you see it this way, then I respect you for that, even if I don't understand it, even if my worldview is completely different. I think that's such a beautiful fundamental way of relating to each other, and something that I think we as a society really need to learn, because we have such a tendency to try to convince each other of our opinions. And I think this is such a divide, not even a divide, a fragmentation that is happening in the world right now, where everybody's like on their own island saying, my principles are the best principles. And everybody who disagrees can screw themselves and go away. And it's allowing us to have this fragmented world right now where each of us feels completely isolated, cut off from everything and everybody else, because as soon as someone else expresses an opinion that we don't like, we say, oh no, I don't want you in my world, you don't exist anymore, go away. And then we're like, now I'm all alone here on my high horse and I'm super comfortable.
Yeah.
And, I this is something that I definitely experience myself. I have
Yeah.
a lot of opinions and a lot of principles, and I have a lot of trouble connecting with people. But yeah, this is what I believe is much more true than that idea of, no, I have to isolate myself and I have to um, reject everything that doesn't agree with me. Um, and at the same time, maybe it's necessary right now. Maybe right now we just need to be in a place where we just kind of withdraw into ourselves and just feel really contracted into that feeling of, this is who I am, this is how I do things, and nobody else is going to tell me different. Maybe that's what's necessary right now. Maybe that's where we are in the wave. But I also, if that's where we are in the wave, that means that we're also going to move further than that. I think we're also going to um, find each other again, and find our common ground again, where we realize that each of us are working very hard to do the right thing and to be right and to be good, even if each of us has a different idea of what good is and what right is.
Mm.
Mm.
Mm. I I find it absolutely amazing. I'm again gonna draw a little bit of line, like a little bit of relation. I'm gonna relate a little bit to the mechanic.
Mm.
It's just for me absolutely the simple of it. It continues blowing my mind. Um, so 49, where it is located inside of the mandala, together with all of the emotional gates. So for everybody watching, listening, us, if you want to check more of the theory, you can do that in your own tempo. I'm just right now naming some of the mechanical aspects.
Mm.
Um, um, yeah, I'm not, yeah, that's it. So where the 49 is located inside of the mandala, it's actually in a place called the Quarter of Initiation, and it's about the mind, right? Thinking. And I find that, I'm still reminding myself, I'm still so much growing into that perception of it, to be catching myself, to be growing, expanding my awareness, my ability to see how easy and how often it happens for myself, for the people around me, everybody, really, to opinionate the emotions. Boom, bam. For me, this is one of the biggest traps for us humans. But it's also how we are designed to function in the way of we go that way, right? We go that way. But it's not the only way of going. but it's one of the ways that would definitely go within our psyche. It's rationalizing, creating opinions, creating, in that case, morally based explanations to justify and explain emotions. And it's very funny. It's also very brutal. It's very brutal, because why do I choose the word brutal is because I guess again, the way that gate is, it is also connected with another gate. It's the gate 4, which is logical. So that emotion, it is connected to logic. So we're looking for logic within emotions, and which kind of emotions do we currently talk about? Because we're not talking about the entire world of emotions. We're talking about the emotions of the aspect inside of us, gate 49, which is emotions having to do with revolution. You know, I mean, just if we contemplate for a moment what a revolution, when do we start a revolution? Like on an individual level or a collective level, it's not that we do revolution every day, right? Revolution is something that happens out of a momentum. And something, obviously, the sensitivity inside of us, it cannot handle something anymore. It is reacting, it is responding to something existing in our reality. And at some moment, that wave and pressure on the inside is like a spiral, you know, creating a momentum. And then we make something to the extent of, I don't know, creating a revolution, the French Revolution, or a very way smaller revolution. It could be, you know, sometimes how often do we hear other people in our individual lives talk about their own perception of, whoa, that experience, it feels, or it felt like a revolution to my story, right? Like this one experience, it's revolutionary, right? Very often we use that wording, but we use it for specific occasions, for specific emotional occasions, for specific collective events, both ways, individual and collective. Yeah. I went a little bit into the direction of revolution, but I wanted actually to go into the direction of of opinionating emotions and rejection as part of an approach, honestly. Because rejection is an approach, it's not an emotion. The emotion is something else, but the rejection is an act. It's an action, it's an approach, it's a way of relating. I relate to you and I relate to myself. So it's a relation that goes inward and outward. And obviously, it's part of our genetics to be dealing with rejection, to be dealing with being rejected and I rejecting something on the outside. And so, because we do the mystifying, and right now that is one of the most, I seem to be today entering and exposing the very sensitive topics, veganism, killing animals. Right now I'm going to be talking about rejecting us and emotions, which is again another taboo, honestly, topic. Because the conversation, the dialogue of rejection is such that it's not exotic, it's not sexy, it's not seductive, it's not like, you know, it's not like talking about crystal dildo. It's not talking about, I'm going to be eating insects as my new source of protein because I'm going to be one of the people saving the world, right? You know, that sounds fancy. I'm going to be the person saving the world. I'm going to be that superhero. That sounds fancy. It sounds, oh, wow, you're such a huge-hearted and open-minded human being. I'm gonna follow you on Instagram. What is the brand you're using for the insect's protein? No. Right now we're talking about rejection. Who talks about rejection? How often do we talk about rejection? What do we know about rejection? How do we feel when we get rejected? How do we feel when we reject ourselves? It's kind of very, because that topic is still in society under taboo, that creates this aspect of us humans, rejection, the approach of it, that makes it be still very uneducated. We're kind of ignorant toward it. So what we very often do is we make everything sure to never end up in situations of being rejected, or we make sure to never end up in a situation of rejecting somebody else, because if I reject somebody else, I automatically think and I'm perceiving myself as being a very wrong, bad person. And it's very heavy shit. It's very heavy energy. It's very heavy energy because rejecting something so organic to us humans means we are rejecting an aspect of us that is organic. And it's like we try to eliminate something that is natural to us. And it's like cutting one of my fingers. I mean, I like that metaphor. If our emotions and our internal landscape, our internal reality, right, emotions and those kind of thoughts, if those things had physical expression, if we reject rejection, it's like in the physical reality translated, it would be if we start cutting bits and pieces of our own body. But here we talk about the emotional body, which is invisible.
Yeah.
And I'm very passionate about that.
For good reason, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, the 49th gate is it's the gate of the fear of rejection. And I think this fear of rejection really permeates our emotional system, in the sense that we are so afraid of emotions, and when we even think about emotions, we immediately expect rejection. Because there is no space for our full emotional experience in the world as it is right now. The emotional system is, like I was saying in the beginning, it's in such turmoil because it is currently evolving. Because right now we are learning how to be emotionally aware species, how to allow our emotions to be intelligent. And we're scrambling, our emotions right now are just fighting to be allowed to exist. And that's why rejection is such a strong fear that we have, because these emotions are so present. They need and want so much space, and society as it functions right now is rejecting it very harshly, saying no emotions, just business. Just go to your job, do your job, go home and shut up. And if you want to experience emotions, go to the movies. You can experience emotions there in a dark room, and we can't talk about it.
It's so true, and it's so ridiculous. It's actually true. Right. I mean, seriously, I've been having oh God, I love it that you say that. Oof. That's why we started that. That's why we started that podcast.
Yes, exactly.
I've been recently, or actually that's not even true. Very often in my life, It's not just recently. To me, it happens very often. I reflect a lot, and I often have this kind of thoughts. Wow, if we actually, what you said, I really love that wording, allow existence. You know, what is existing? Allow it to be, allow existence to be, allow the shapes, forms, expressions of existence to be. If we have that approach, say yes, you know, to life and all it delivers as sensations, because my father said it to me when I was a young kid, small kid, and I really, it stays with me till today. NoRa, until you're alive, you're gonna feel something. And if you don't feel something, probably you're not alive. And I'm laughing, I'm having that humor, that joke, that laughter, actually, because it's that simple truth, right? It's that simple truth. Truth, I believe, is simple. Truth is, it's, you know, simplifying the complex. So yeah, I've been reflecting on, if we have that approach in our own individual reality of actually allowing existence to be as it is, and just what does it mean to allow existence to be? Well, in practical terms, is can the breath be in that moment, in that moment, in that emotion? Can we, that body, can that body be the home body, you know, for the experience? And the experience is actually always evoking some sort of sensations and emotions. So can I be in my breath with it? So that is one way, obviously, one approach to exist, to be as a human being in reality, where if what happens so often to us humans, I guess we undeliberately do it. I think we have no idea that we do it this way. I think, yeah, we're just ignorant and we have no idea about it. We think we know so much about our own life. And those heads, they're, oh, for sure, very filled up with a lot of information about something. But the conversation that we're currently here creating is not about the knowing about how was the bottle created, how was the glass, the history of glass production, the history of wax production, you know, the Industrial Revolution as part of human history, right? It's all intellectual data. The conversation we're right now having is actually approaching life. You know, being with life, being, sensing, experiencing emotions, feeling, because as long as we're alive, we feel something. So very often what happens to us undeliberately, out of ignorance, we rationalize, we opinionate, we somehow put those emotions into boxes. Like, I mean, with boxes, to make it even more practical, tangible, we just have opinions about the emotions, and very often those opinions are actually against feeling. Like, it's something to be ashamed of. Oh, you're right. It's just something to be ashamed of. It's something that makes no sense of having it, so rather block it. And because that is, I mean, our parents, our grandparents, the parents of our and I mean, if we go back throughout the centuries, back in the linear, from a linear perspective of time, right? If we go back in time, there hasn't been really, it hasn't been part of our human way of being to be allowing the existence of being, of emotions and all that. It hasn't been. It's actually a phenomenon taking place. I mean, awareness, expanding the awareness over emotions, what you said beautifully, you know, to be growing emotional intelligence, it's very new. It's very, very new. So what that can give us as an awareness, I believe, or at least I get inspired, you know, to be tapping into that awareness when I think in that way, is whoa, inside of our psyche, right? Inside of our system, nervous system, there is so much memory, not only from our own personal life, but that memory information that had been passed on to us from the generation backwards, to be reducing, but on a foundational level, actually rejecting everything that puts me in a situation of me being sensitive. Because when I'm sensitive, I'm vulnerable and I feel. And yeah, I guess me and you can talk about that, yeah, way more. But to, like, again, give it a shape, give it a form, give it an outline, give it a structure, to summarize that thought jazz happening from my side. No idea.
No idea. Yeah.
Yeah. So demystifying, for example, demystifying, you know, rejection, or sensitivity, demystifying emotional sensitivity. Probably I like playing with me. And one of the games I do with me is really, I do it almost every day since a while. I just tell myself, what if I just relax? But from what? From opinions. Like, forget for a moment that all the things that I know about how life is supposed, just relax and watch, just observe, just, you know, watch what happens to the awareness through sensing, through just being present for those things that touch me, those things that create inside of me, obviously, something to feel. So let me see my naked sensitivity. Let me be with my sensitivity. Yeah, I will breathe. There, you know, breathe. Don't forget to breathe. And maybe we're not gonna die. Yeah, and as you say, that beautiful wording, emotional intelligence can grow only out of, away from actually opinions about right and wrong emotions. Emotional intelligence grows in that space of no opinions, sensing. Yeah. How do you, yeah, how do you sense, Orion?
Well, demystifying rejection, you know, for me, the emotionally intelligent way of looking at rejection is that rejection simply sets a boundary. It just says, this is where you don't belong. You know, because the 49th gate is also so much about belonging. Where do we belong? Who do we belong with? And if someone tells us no, it's simply saying, this is not where you belong, because the place where you belong says yes and opens up and welcomes you and feels like belonging. So we don't need, like you were saying before, you know, rejection makes us feel like a bad person, like we're bad. But just because one person or one group tells us no doesn't mean that we are wrong. It just means that we are wrong for that group or for that person. And if You know, we need rejection because otherwise we would be involved with everything and everyone.
Yeah.
And we cannot be, you know, emotionally, we don't have the capacity, just in time and space, we don't have the capacity to connect with everyone. And not every connection is necessarily or relevant. So we need rejection to show us the way, to show us where to go and where to stay away from. And so when we are, you know, you're talking about opinions and making stories, when we make our emotions in, and we attach all these stories to them, and to say, oh, I feel this way because of this and because of that, or they rejected me because of this and because of that, it's not necessarily true. They rejected us because it's not the right fit, it's not the right match, it's not a correct attraction that's going to create it's not a fertile connection. And that is fine, you know, in and of itself. It's only when we attach stories and value to it and we say, no, but I have to be accepted. I cannot be rejected. I need to belong to everything that I knock on the door of. I need to be let through every single door. And then if we say like, oh, if I'm rejected, it means that there's something wrong with me. And then we go into ourselves and, oh, I will never go anywhere else again because they rejected me and they told me I'm a bad human being. Which is, I don't even know where we get these stories and how we get this idea of that we're not allowed or able to exist. And this is how deep the conditioning is, that we don't even consciously give to each other, but that are subconsciously, from when we were kids, we were told that we are not allowed to exist, and we are only allowed to exist on certain conditions. And when we are accepted and allowed by certain people who have a certain authority for some reason. But if we let go of those stories and those opinions and simply just say, you know, this is for me, this is not for me. I'm going to give my energy, my time, and my love to those things that are for me, and those things that are not for me, I respect them, I bless them, and I send them off on their own journey. And I'm gonna give my attention and my love to my journey. Then rejection is it's such a beautiful thing. And it's such a blessing to reject someone and to say, this is not working. And let's not invest more time and energy into something that is not connecting, into something that doesn't work, because it's exhausting to spend time on something that is not fertile. If something is not reproducing, recreating on its own, then it takes so much energy to drag it along. I mean, we've all been in these relationships where we just try to, oh, if I just invest a little bit more time, if I just do a little bit more for the other person, maybe then we will connect. If it doesn't happen, then it doesn't happen. And then rejection is a blessing. Sending the other person on their way and saying, thank you for everything you've taught me. Thank you for everything we were able to do together. And thank you for letting me go. That is such a beautiful thing. But for some reason, we are terrified of actually having that confrontation, actually having those conversations where you recognize what is real and what is not real. And so we spend our time in all these distortions and all these stories about, oh, if I can't do this, then I'm wrong, then I'm bad. But it just is what it is. It just is what it is. And the feelings are what they are, like you're saying, you know, if you feel, you're alive. So everything feeling is good because it means that we're alive. We're allowed to feel all those things. Let them feel. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to add something before
Mhm.
we go. I would like to add, because I find it a very important detail to what you're saying. It doesn't matter in what direction it goes. If we get rejected, we start thinking about what are the reasons. We look for an explanation about the other side. Why did they reject us? And the other way around. And that is here this beauty that, for example, human design, I get inspired into if I think of the mechanic is, the 49 is connected to the 4, to the logic. to the gate of explanation, to the gate of answers. The answers derived from a logical, rational process, thinking, finding a logic, demystifying us, our daily reality. So a very frequent trap, and to me it is a result from lack of education on emotional intelligence, is, so for example, if we focus for a moment on that example, I get rejected by somebody else, right? And I start looking for logical explanation to explain me, the reason for this other person rejecting me, in my hope, basically, to find relief, right? For myself. So the trap is when we focus our attention into the outside, the other, and his reasons, his stories, his arguments, his motivations, where he is in his evolution and his development. It's something on the outside, while on the inside, what is going on, in fact, is actually the experience of being rejected. So while we are focusing on the outside, we are neglecting, we're abandoning our experience of being rejected. And that detail, I find it crucial to be starting to have a conversation about, because of so many reasons, which I also would like to pay attention on. Rejection, when somebody else rejects me, it feels so painful. And in the moment of pain, it does not feel like a blessing. It does not feel beautiful. It does not feel like, yeah, I'm so looking forward for the moment of wisdom. No, in that moment, you feel like you're dying on the end. If the reject, because of course there are different intensities of rejection, but let's use the example of the one that really hurts, of the one that it hurts so much that you cannot actually close your eyes for it. You cannot ignore it. It just hurts. You can also try to distract yourself, using nicotine, MJ, alcohol, party, adrenaline kick. It's also a way. You can start bungee jumping every day, or you can start going to the mountains and being really wild. You can start going to the fitness and just putting your entire system into the adrenaline kick rush experience. I mean, to be distracting us, it doesn't have to be necessarily those methods or things we consider as what do you call it, like drugs, alcohol, those kind of things, addictions, well, those kind of things, because fitness can also be addiction. So we can be distracting ourselves from the hurt through sexting people every day, new people every day, I don't know, or trying to achieve 10 orgasms a day, anything that we do kind of in an obsessive way, or in a way that as a response, oh, the hurt comes, oh, let me do something else, right? So we actually don't stay with the hurt, we turn our backs to it. So that is what I try to describe, and I'm just trying to give practical examples from our everyday life, because our ways of distraction are so many. It could be watching movie every night, every evening. Why can that be an example for it? For ignoring my own hurt, is because if I am working the entire day, and my last 2-3 hours of the day, I choose to be watching movies, and so when throughout the day am I present with myself? None, nowhere. So movie can also be another escaping mechanism, coping mechanism for me choosing not to be present with, well, the example right now is the hurt from being rejected. So back to the example, after the listing of all the different possible variations of distraction and running away from it, the hurt is because we think the other abandoned me. So me, the poor one, I cannot deal with myself. But the thing is, if we are hooked in our thinking for looking for reasons why the other person did it and all the possible explanations for that, as long as we do it for this long period of time, we do abandon our own experience of rejection. And it is actually the antidote is to actually start stepping into the experience of rejection, choosing to be present with the experience of rejection, and the explanation to keep it focused on us, not on the outside. Stop explaining the outside world. We will never find the explanations because our fantasy is rich and creative. Today we can come up with 2 explanations. Tomorrow we're going to come up with 2 more versions of the explanation. And in 3 months' time, we're going to have 10 times 20 more ideas of why the person did whatever he did. So that obviously is something that is fluctuating. It doesn't have really an end. It's dependent on our fantasy. It's in reality, it's just assumptions. And explanation and understanding actually is an individual process. What can I explain? What am I understanding about rejection? When I am with rejection inside of my own experience from my own reality. So what is the understanding that I can then explain? Yeah, and it's about my own experience, and it's not about my own assumptions about somebody else. And I think that really makes a difference. Not only it makes a difference, but it starts moving us away from the taboo approach, right?
Yeah.
We have to sensitivity, rejection, and all that jazz. Yeah.
Yeah. Breaking the taboo by embracing what we can learn from all the emotions that come forth from rejection. And that's actually when revolution is allowed to happen. When we open up to all those feelings, we start transforming, we start changing, we start moving within ourselves. And that is the function of emotion, to move through all those different aspects, all those different perspectives, and learn from them, because in the end, that's all emotion needs us to do, is to learn. And so whatever it is that we learn, whatever it is that we experience, fulfills the function of emotion. Doesn't need us to do more, just to feel it, just to allow it.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, why it is such a taboo, because we are learning how to allow emotion to do its job. And we are very resistant to that because we're scared of what it's going to, what it's going to be like to learn all those things, to go through all those deeper layers of who we are, what we need, and how it feels. It's scary because there's so much. Emotion is such an intense experience. So it makes sense that we're afraid of it and we're saying, no, thank you. I will be here. I'll be okay. Let me just be okay. Yeah.
Let the rejection never speak to you again.
Yeah.
So that I don't have to feel with what I feel. So that I don't have to deal with what I feel.
No. I don't want to deal. I just want to keep going. Let me just be okay.
Yeah. Final words maybe that before we finish our daily today's podcasting on revolution and rejection. Final words from my side, what I come up with is So I'm currently all about inviting us, inviting myself, inviting you, Ariane, inviting us, our beautiful people who share our right now online digital space, and surf with us together on that journey. Inviting us, stimulating us to contemplate, ponder upon, look into, watch. So what happens after reaction, rejection, revolution, rebirth?
Mm.
For those of us who have been brave enough, or who have been lucky enough, to go through the experience of actually really entering and exiting in a wholesome way the experience of being rejected, or the experience of rejecting, right? And all the emotional jazz that comes along that experience. Because it moves in a wave, but an aspect that is part of that wave unfolding is rebirth, right? Something new is being rebirthed, and that new thing is not old. So it's not an old story. So if we hear ourselves repeating the same old story, that's not the rebirth. That's we repeating the programming that we know and have. So that's not what we call rebirth. Rebirth is rebirth. Rebirth is the rebirth of something new. And the something new gives a new perspective to look at. And that new perspective to look at, I guess it is also free. It's not having the load. It's not loaded with anger, resentment, that. No. It's the rebirth after we've done that, after we have felt that, after we have traveled those territories. The rebirth is fresh, new energy to meet life in a new way, fresh, right? So I'm not sure we have experienced revolution out of that place of awareness, out of that place of that the actions reflect that awareness of rebirth in actuality. It's an interesting thing to look into, to see how we can embody it in our life. Are we interested to embody it? Can we embody it? Do we think of embodying it? Are we pulled into embodying rebirth, or are we embodying the resentment from rejection and the heaviness from rejection? Okay, that's for me. Ariana, do you want to share something? Final.
Yeah,
Oh God.
I love this final perspective on rejection and rebirth. And for me, the final thing is like very much for me the visual of revolution. The revolution is like a tumbling through, like a revolving, rolling around in like all the feelings. That's what a revolution is. And I think we can have these very personal individual revolutions when we just kind of flip into a new perspective and suddenly look at life and look at everything from a new perspective and suddenly see, oh, the way I used to see things is not relevant anymore, and what used to feel right now feels wrong, and what used to feel wrong I can now see the point of, and I can now see the purpose of. So yeah, that's for me what revolution can also be. It's this big change in society where everything changes, but it can also be a very small individual experience where we make these revolutions in our life, where we keep shifting into new perspectives, keep shifting into hopefully more aware, more open, more loving, more free perspectives, more true perspectives. And we can only move into those perspectives by really moving through those emotional waves, embracing all the feelings that come along with it, allowing that horrible feeling of rejection and of resentment and everything just to move through us and be reborn on the other side with a new perspective. And I believe that is also through all those micro revolutions, that's how the global revolution
Mm,
happens, because we
mm,
all keep
mm.
shifting into a more awake perspective, slowly but surely. And that's how we get there. That's how we get into the higher evolved version of who we already are.
Yeah. Oh, that really melted me, touched my nectar. That
Do it.
it's what you're saying. It's it's in the collective. It's what Gandhi had said. It's what so many other people have come to, that awareness. I see it like an ocean, like like a field.
Yeah.
The revolution starts from within, and then
Mhm.
without through my embodiment and action and really living it. We like a ripple we create through our presence, probably a ripple effect on the outside, and probably other people start revolting with us. But yeah,
We're all just tumbling around.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yes.
No good. Well, it's time to say shalom and goodbye for today. That was a beautiful meeting. Um, just sharing honest, reflections from today. God knows where we're gonna be in 1 year time, and
Okay.
the kind of reflections we're gonna be having on that topic. But this is it for today.
Yeah.
So yeah, everybody, if you like that message, and we're gonna be coming in that field, me and Ariane, demystifying human design and also demystifying, honestly, our just everyday reality. So if you like this message, the coming messages, the message of energy, frequency, vibration, taking that inner responsibility for my own experience as a human, right? And while observing the external reality, how can we step into our own empowerment? If you like that messages in our creation, please feel stimulated to press a like to that video. Feel free to share that video, that podcast to another person, so that we create together that snowball effect, and that, just, I guess, growth of a new community, a new way of embodying awareness, so that we mutually support each other in those times of massive changes right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good, everybody. Bye for now, and see you next time.